What's up, guys? This is the Stray Dog, Barrett Brown, and you're watching the Three Count Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another great edition of the Three Count Podcast, which ends now entering, and now I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog Miller, man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And with this being season 6 and our 400 and something episode, I would just hope you say it with me. I am your Sherpa, because like your tribal chief, acknowledge me. But like every good Sherpa, you gotta have someone who's been there, done that, and can do it more efficiently than you can. That's why it's never about me. It's about who's entering. So who's entering? You can find this man at ROH, AEW, New Japan. You can find this man at BEW, Tacoma Pro, IWE, BIW, Wrestling Revolver, and WWE. He is the chosen one. He is the Star Spangled Superhero. He is the Blazing One. He is the 50 caliber. He is the Stray Dog, Barrett Brown.
Man, I have never had a more official and proper introduction. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on the Three Count Podcast, man. I appreciate you.
Hell yeah, man. So it's funny because like I told you this right before we went on the air, man. Like that persistency pays off, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you, during 2020, right, we had the pandemic, everything was shutting down, and like everybody else, I was just putting out content on wrestling,
Yeah.
just having fun. And I started following you, and then I was like, yo, so we kicked up this interview show, this show right here, and I was like, yo, I got to get Barrett Brown on the show. And I just legitimately kept looking for ways, kept thinking about it. And I also, to be fair, also nervous about being told no. And it wasn't until just like a while ago, like I just happened to be on TikTok. I saw you were live, and I just slipped in. I was like, hey, let's bring you on the podcast, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are, man. 3 years
Yeah.
of waiting finally paid off, so I'm glad to be on here, man. Glad we can make it happen.
It's funny too because like I know the scene down in Texas is massive, right?
Yeah,
Like,
man.
but what I really love about Texas crowds, right, and this is something that we can talk about, is that if you cannot be over anywhere in the US, right? But if you are over in Texas, it feels like you are over all over the world.
Everywhere, man. Yeah. And Texas is so like it's so big that it's such a melting pot of like different kinds of fans. Because you could have like your smart marks, you could have just like your old school TV style fans,
Yeah.
that watch world class, and then you have these guys that PWG fans. It's just such a melting pot. So it's cool to see all the different styles that come together. And in Texas, you when you book a show, you almost want to have like every style because you don't know what kind of fans are going to show up. So I feel like, Texas has a lot of really cool talent right now, but also the fans really kind of tell you what talent's going to stick around or not.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like even for you, right? Like you had so I know it wasn't long, right? But you had that match with Lance at
Yeah.
AEW. But the moment like you were in the ring, the crowd was you could hear the crowd was like,
Yeah.
Barrett. And
Yeah.
it's the second time that I've seen that happen. Because we'll talk about him because he's also been on the show. Will All Day like was on the
Mhm.
show, and he had a match too. And I think it was I don't remember if it was on ROH or if it was on AEW. Regardless, the crowd like he was supposed to be. I think he was supposed to be the heel, and the crowd was not having it. They're like, "No, that's
Right.
our baby face." And I was like, "That's a Texas crowd. Like the crowd definitely is like, we're never gonna boo our natives, and we're gonna let even your faces know they're not welcomed here."
Yeah, absolutely. You have a lot of guys that, will step away for a while and they get nervous to come back because they're like, well, I don't know if these guys are going to remember who I am. Like maybe the fans forgot about me. They never forget.
Mhm.
They always hold their favorites close to their heart. They always show that appreciation. And so it's I love it out here in Texas, man. It's good to get out, but it's always good to come back home.
Oh yeah, no, I can imagine. And I've talked to people from like northern Texas, and guys to the Austin, San Antonio, and then to the to College Station, and it
Yeah.
is wild to hear. It is. Fans are just the way they are, and I've heard about fans that live like Amarillo or Lubbock. They travel to Central Texas, which you go. It. By the way, for those who don't understand, a 10-hour drive in Texas, you're still in Texas. Like, and
Yeah, you're still there. It is insane. I think that I did a loop it was for Evolve, like in 2018. It was Detroit to Chicago, and it was like the same distance as from my house to Houston. It was like, it's like it's the same distance. You're still in Texas. It's its own country, basically. It's crazy.
Yeah, when I was in the military, I got stationed in San Antonio, and I started there, and then they put us on a bus after we graduated from basic. They put us on a bus, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna put you on a bus. You're gonna be 6 hours. You're going north." And I was in like San Angelo, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What is this?" And then I remember my dad coming to pick me up from San Angelo, and we drove 12 hours, and we had just reached the tip of Texas, getting into
Yeah.
Oklahoma. I was like, "This is insane."
It's wild, man. Yeah, it's huge. It's insane how big it is.
No, but let me ask about you, man, because we can put over the Texas crowds. We could put everything over with Texas. But
Right.
okay, so I know everybody can ask those questions like who are you, right? But really I want to know, what was the moment that brought you into wrestling? Like that you were like, I have to get into the business now.
And that's a good question. I think the moment was when I was a little kid. I grew up watching WCW, and I was enamored with the aura of Goldberg because he was in the prime of his career. His undefeated streak as a champion, and it was just a feeling of I want to know what it feels like to be that guy. Like I don't want to be a fan. I want to know what he feels like in front of all these people. And there was a point in time where I kind of fell off and stopped watching it, but there was like a bug in my head that was like that fire never left. And then I remember there was just one day randomly I was at my parents' house and we were scrolling through the TV, and Monday Night Raw just flipped on. I was like, let's stop and watch this for a second. Like, let's just kind of go back. And dude, that fire reignited. And I was like, I'm in. I'm fully into this. I want to know what they feel like. And Goldberg was my childhood favorite, but growing up and really studying wrestling, it became Shawn Michaels. And just to know that showmanship and larger than life. And he wasn't the biggest guy, and neither am I. And I was like, well, if he can do it, maybe I can too. It was kind of a mix of a few things, but those were the catalysts of why I would really want to become a pro wrestler.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember like me growing up too as a kid, a product of I should say, a product of the '80s, a child of the '90s.
Yeah.
I remember when Goldberg debuted and he had a debut match against Hugh Morris.
Yeah.
And he like he hits the laughing no laughing matter, and Goldberg kicks out, and I remember like, whoa, who is this? And then like being enamored with all of that. But then as like things that happened like went on, I became more of a fan for like Sting because like he had just like this cool darker persona, even a new Surfer Sting. I like that Sting. And then I became like a bigger appreciator of like Ray and Eddie and Chris Jericho and Juventud, because all those guys were these little guys who just didn't get the chance. And although I am not quite your height, I'm a little taller. I'm 5'10". I'm still like understanding the fact that the guys that were on TV were still 6'2", 6'3", 6'5". So guys like Ray and Dean and Eddie and Hoovy all like stuck to me, and I'm like, these are my guys. Like Billy Kidman, my dude.
Exactly. Like, well, we have a chance. This is crazy.
Yeah, and then when I got to seeing Shawn and started understanding like Shawn's game, and then watching the transition of Chris Jericho from WCW to WWE, and then like the evolution of Jericho from there, I was like, bro, this is a whole different world. It's like I love wrestling, and then you have your guys like your Cenas, your Rocks, your Austins, those just the way larger than life characters. I just remember like understanding that I was like, this is the kind of wrestling that I wanted to do. Like I knew like I wasn't going to be quite the high flyer like Rey Mysterio was, because he's just the innovator of of lucha libre. But to see someone like Shawn, and Shawn really didn't have to do a whole lot to get over with the crowd. He was just everybody liked him or everybody hated him regardless. He was just drawing like so much. He had just this power of like this. He just oozed charisma, and you're like, wow, like you're just fascinated this way. He's like, I for the longest time, this was something that and sorry for those who I peeled the curtain back too far on, but the longest time I watched Shawn Michaels chewing gum in a ring, and I was like, that guy's so good. He's eating gum while he's in the ring,
Yeah.
not realizing he's actually having a conversation.
Exactly. And it's funny, really understanding the business and watching how Sean always would wrestle and how much time he took, because I see so many guys that I help train that have happy feet that try to go 1,000 miles an hour. And it's like, if you watch guys that made it and pay attention to how much time they actually take, it's really crazy how slow they go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell guys all the time, and again, not to pull the curtain too far back, but with me, you have a newer guy that gets excited to work with me, and I'll get a message. They're like, I'm going to bump up the cardio for the next few weeks and be ready. I'm like, you don't have to do that. Like, I don't, there's a misconception. Like, I turn the dial up when I need to. Otherwise, brother, we're going to tell a story. We're going to take our time and make all this mean something.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Is that like I've only been in the business for about I'm going in my 5th year. Actually, I'm in my 5th year. We're recording this on January 2nd for those who don't know, but I'm in my 5th year in 2 days. So,
I hit 15 on the 17th, so that's
wow.
cool. We're not too far off, man. That's awesome.
I'm over here. I'm like 5, 15. It's a 10-year gap.
Not too
But
far
no,
off.
so what makes it so cool though is that like you kind of understand like, hey, and also by the way, just to put it out there, I'm turning 40, so that's just the thing. But you learn like, hey man, like and something I got beaten to my head numerous times was that is if you're working slow, work slower, and if you think you're working slow, work even slower,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, and it's like you can tell everything that you need to tell, and you don't have to do 1,000 moves. You can do 5 or 6, and you could tell an awesome story that way.
That was literally exactly what Killer Tim Brooks would tell us, was if you think you're going too slow, slow down even more. Because you get excited, adrenaline takes over and you start going 1,000 miles an hour, you don't even realize it. So that he really hammered that into all of us at his school.
I remember I had a match. It was like this fatal 4-way, and this fatal 4-way, it was just for the boys, but we filmed it, for content.
Mhm.
And we gave ourselves like 10 to 12 minutes,
Yeah.
and we were done in 8. And that like told us everything we needed to know about, like, back off, slow.
Yeah. And it's funny how, some of the biggest and some of my favorite matches I've ever seen, if I really think about the moments, like, for example, CM Punk and Undertaker at Mania, the only thing I remember was when Undertaker sat up out of the Anaconda Vice. It was just a sit up. That's all it was. Or like the first, it was at WrestleMania. I can't remember which one it was. I think 26, when Taker wrestled Triple H. It was the one before the Hell in a Cell, the year before Hell in a Cell. And it was just the kick out from when Triple H hit the tombstone on Taker. Because for a second, when I watched that, I thought the streak was over. And when Taker kicked out, I was like, he's actually dead. Like, this man is actually dead. And it was just a kick out. And it wasn't a moonsault. It wasn't anything crazy. He just kicked out, and I got cold. I got chills. I never forgot that.
I think when it comes down to you, like, everybody wants to be the best match of the night, but ultimately, like, for me, what's funny is I want to be the best match of the night, but also I want to be the best moment. Like, I want people to like be like, oh man, did you see that scene? Remember when Red Dog won? Like, blah 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 blah. Yeah, but did you see it when he was like just getting beat down? He hit that one spine buster, and just you thought he broke somebody's back on the ring.
Right.
Like, it was great. I love hearing those convos. Or like, I remember one time I had someone at one point, and this is it's wrestling. You make whatever you want. At one time, I used to pretend that I was shooting bullets with my fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like my character is just like this dumb kind of mercenary who just openly knows that he can kind of get away with stuff, and
Right.
so we did this whole thing where I was just like pew 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 pew, and like shooting people in the shoulders.
Yeah.
But what is there's one kid in the crowd. He didn't even know my name.
Mhm.
He didn't ever remember me. He was like, "Dad, I want to go get a picture with the pew pew guy." Like, that was it, and I was like, "Okay, well, I create a moment for that kid."
Absolutely.
And then like, yeah, so I see him at these wrestling shows now all the time. Now he knows me as Red Dog, but Yeah, all the time. I was like, bro. And so I was just a pew pew guy. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll take it and I'll run with it.
I love it. And isn't it so funny how, when you have a lot of kids in the crowd, that's the easiest time you'll have.
Yeah.
The kids are the G code, man, especially as a baby face. If you're getting beat down, you reach out to that one kid and he feels like he's the reason you fight back. The energy resonates and then you got him, man. Like I tell my guys all the time, if you find a kid in the crowd, that's your cheat code. Go straight to them because they'll take care of the rest for you. I promise.
Oh yeah, I love being able to, cause I also like I market myself towards kids, but I love finding that one person in the crowd who just like you're looking at them and you're just like asking them for like help, and then they do the slow clap or they do
Yeah.
something like to get you going, and then the crowd joins with them. And it's the one thing I tell a lot of people too, and I get asked this by some of the newer guys who are getting trained now is what's the thing what's the code, what's the cheat code? And I was like, yo, just be you,
Yeah.
be genuine in the moment, because the moment you fake it, the crowd feels it and they don't care.
Man, I couldn't agree more because I tell guys all the time that, if you don't believe in what you do, why should they believe in you? Because if you show just a moment of doubt in yourself, then they are not invested anymore, just like that. And it's even subconscious. Like they'll know subconsciously who's a pro and who's not, just
Yeah.
by how you carry yourself or how you handle a moment. If you don't own that moment, they're gonna know there's something up and they're not invested anymore.
Yeah, it's tough too because it's like I remember I go back and watch some of my first matches and I just
Mhm.
cringe because I'm
Dude,
like, oh my god.
yeah.
And like I
But
coach
it's
myself in the matches, which is funny.
yeah, that's awesome. And it's also really cool like to kind of go back and watch those matches and then see how far you've come and to wonder like okay, if I were wrestling this kid I'm watching, like you're wrestling yourself, like what would I have told him in this moment, like what would I have changed, and then like would I have applied that to myself. And I tell guys as well, if you were a kid in the crowd, would you be cheering for you? Like would you want to pay to see this guy again? And if not,
Mm,
then you got to change something.
I you know what? I've never thought about that. I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna keep that as a note now going
Yeah, for
forward. Just say watch my matches back and be like, would you pay to watch that guy wrestle again? Probably not. You might want to figure it out.
change something up. Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
I feel like that's also just such a difficult thing now because so many things have been done in the industry now, and a lot of guys I think find it hard to stand out. And that's why 50 caliber kind of went away, just because I didn't want to seem like a wannabe Bullet Club member because I was involved with New Japan for a while. So
Yeah.
whenever they put me in Stray Dog Army, I was like, man, Stray Dog might be something. In my head, I'm like, well, I've never been signed, but I've always gotten a shot. And to me, it's like a stray dog that I go house to house to these big houses, these big companies. I'm fed a meal, but I'm never let inside. I'm a
Mm.
stray dog just looking for a home. And I was like, this actually kind of resonates personally. Let's run with that. So that's why I went with this. And I was like, well, maybe I can make this like, if I believe in it personally, maybe they will too.
And it makes sense. It makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I know for me, like the name Red Dog was something that came from Clifford, the big red dog,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being bullied like all through high school and elementary school and high school.
Ooh.
And I was just like, yo, it resonates with me, and I talk about it all the time. And kids ask me, they're like, why is your name Red Dog? And I'll tell them like, yo, I was bullied as a kid, and I want everybody to remember this name. And so that actually low key became like the motivator to like just
Yeah.
keep pushing. Was like, I'm just gonna be that guy that like he's the mercenary that you don't really count on, but he's also kind of comedic. But and I included like so much of my life into just this one character. But I was like,
Yeah.
the crowd resonates with him because like I don't know, maybe I just because I act like one, like I don't want to say it that way, but I act like one of them. I just like I'm happy to be there, and I'm always like in the corner. And then when the worst part is when I'm a heel, everybody hates me, which is
Yeah.
great
Oh, yeah.
because like I resonate with them. I just boo myself, and then I talk trash to them about why they're booing me. I'm like, I had this one person in Pennsylvania. They booed me, and I was like, I don't know why you're booing me. I was like, you live in Pennsylvania, and I walked away.
That's beautiful. I love it. And I like, a lot of kids and just people in general can relate to being bullied too. And if you can have your persona that relates to people, I think that's a lost art as well. And I remember it was actually William Regal that talked about his philosophy to being a heel, and he would take like tidbits of people that he did not like in real life and apply them to his character. He said that he was on a plane and sitting next to this guy who just well dressed but was very uppity, like knew he was rich, thought he was better than everybody, and he had like a cufflink with his name engraved on it, just very over the top extra. He got off the plane and called his wife, said, "I need you to tailor a suit with my name with a cufflink on a suit." He's like, because I couldn't stand it about this guy and I need that done. He took what he hated and applied it to his heel character about what he hated in real life. And that was like that blew my mind. I was like, man, what a genius. Like the fact that he was never world champion just really blows my mind, honestly.
And all the knowledge that man has, and
Yeah.
like in the way like he pushes like I know a lot of people don't like the real man William Regal character.
Yeah.
I love that character
Yes.
because he's legitimately telling you like all the things. He's like showing you the mirror of like this is who you think you are and you're not, and you can never be that guy, and he's literally flaunting it in your face.
He is. I
And
love
like
it. As a preteen, I hated Regal, and now I'm like, dude, he was the best. He was way too good.
well, even now, like his character, whenever like when he was with BCC, in AEW, or even now, like the brass knucks and stuff like that, and like he's always like, the one thing about William Regal that keeps him consistent is that his character is a pompous asshole. Like he just is, even though he knows. Like you cheer for him because you're like, yo, we love Regal. He's so cool. He never changed. He's still a pompous asshole.
Absolutely.
He's just telling you who he is.
Absolutely. And that's like, guys like Kevin Owens, even as Kevin Steen on the Indies, he never changed. It just, his reasoning behind what he did changed or who he worked with changed. Otherwise, that dude never changed who he was. And I think like that's a lost art too, is like you have all these guys, which I've been guilty of going to, like maybe in Dallas, I'm a good guy. And then maybe like down in Houston, I'm bad and I'm a totally different person. But like guys like that can just keep the same persona and just change their mindset on why they're doing what they're doing. That's an art to behold for sure.
Yeah. And I guess that's where I kind of want to be too. Like, as far as like, if I become a bad guy, like, I'm still gonna talk shit. Like, as a face, I'm talking shit to the bad guy, the heel for the people. But if I'm a bad guy, I'm talking shit to the good guy because of the people. And I love the idea of like doing that. And just I remember one time, listen, like so I used to live in Maryland before I moved to Massachusetts. And this lady was just booing the hell out of us. And it was me and my friends. We used to run. I run with this group called Pure Ignorance, but this lady was booing us, and I was like, I don't know why you're booing me. Your husband is literally sitting right next to you on Tinder, and she looked. So she looks at the phone. She looks back at me, and I was like, "Gotcha," and just walked away from the combo.
That's beautiful.
And it's like, yeah, I was like, and then like I remember like the baby faces were in, and I was just beating the hell out of this baby face, and I just look at her. I was like, "Hey, how's it feel to know that this guy's a loser like you and your husband?" And just kept like punching him.
Oh yeah.
But I've come out in that same crowd as a face, and I was just like, "It'd be like, hey, don't talk to them that way." And I hit him. I'd be like, "How's it feel to know you got punched in the face by the crowd?" And just do it.
I love it. And that's what a lot of fans look for, is that involvement. I feel that's the difference between, like us and like MMA, is they go to MMA to see a knockout, but they come to us to like to feel something, to be included. And yeah, I love that. And that's what I think a lot of guys don't do right now, is they're not verbal. Like they don't really talk a lot in the ring and talk their shit. Like, dude, as a heel, I don't shut up. And like, I'm just constantly running my mouth, but I'm also like, I kind of gave an example to a guy I trained yesterday we did like a little like 8 minute impromptu match where I was the heel, and I was talking to the crowd. But as I was talking, in between what I said, I was telling him the next spot. He was like, "Did you just call?" I was like, "Yeah, I did. Like, just listen, open your ears, just listen to me." There's it's fun like to just discover new ways to communicate and like call stuff or blow someone's mind or open up their imagination. I love it.
Oh yeah, it's fun. And my favorite part is like we can call in the back and we could talk all day.
Yeah.
But the one thing I do like is whenever like I'm in the ring and we're just calling it. Like
Hmm.
no one's got to say anything. We're just me and my boy Chaz, and I. We don't have to call anything. We literally will go out to the ring, and you can tell us we have 8 to 10, 5 to 6. We don't care. We'll
Yeah.
tell this awesome story in no time. But we just have this ability of just knowing what the next person's gonna hit without
Yep.
ever saying anything, and I think that's so much fun to do.
It is.
Maybe we'll call the open and the close and the finish, but then after that, it's whatever happens. We just
Yeah.
have a ball.
Absolutely. And I like that too because at that point, it's equal playing ground, right? Like there's no issue about someone forgetting something. You can just go out there and just be confident and just work together and just have this dance and go do your thing. I Whenever I train guys from the ground up, my final two tests, the first one is that they have to wrestle an invisible opponent for 30 minutes and tell me a story. And but I have to know like what they're doing and what the opponent is doing and what move is being done or what the story is. And then the final test is we don't talk about anything, but it's an hour Broadway with me, and that's the last test. And I actually have a 15-year-old. He just turned 15. His name is Langley. He wrestles weekly down at MPX in Bedford right now, around the DFW area. And he just did an hour with me like a couple of weeks ago, and he absolutely killed it. And it's cool to just see, these kids that will come and not really know a whole lot and then just watch their brains develop and the move sets and their understanding of the business and how to pace themselves, and just to see that growth from really not being able to know what to do for 3 minutes and then for them to do an hour with confidence. It is insane. And you don't talk about anything. You just do it. You just let it happen naturally. It's so fun.
It's funny because like I've heard that same thing from one other trainer,
Mm,
even though he's never been on the podcast.
okay.
I have heard, and he trains in Vegas. But
Okay.
everybody knows him. Everybody knows him.
Who is
Um,
it? Can you say?
Sin, Sin Body.
Simba. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
I was wondering if I was like, is it Simbodi or Cheeseburger? I didn't know which one it
yeah.
was. Gotcha.
Oh, and cheeseburger. Well, I mean, and cheeseburger, which is oddly enough, that's not the one I was thinking of. But yeah, and cheeseburger. I definitely know he does that too. No, and it's cool though because I love seeing guys who get put to the test, and then I never had that. So I don't want to say like my training was, but everybody different flavors of ice cream.
Yeah.
But it's so cool to hear people get to do stuff like that where they're going 60 minutes with their trainer and they're just like, we're not gonna say anything, bro. We just gonna go out there and just kill it, enjoy. Just-
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, everyone should at least once try to do a 30-minute match with like invisible stand, because it's definitely like thinking for two people is difficult.
Hmm.
And there's definitely an art to it. And it's fun to just see how people's brains work, whenever they maybe not sure what to do next, or if they get stuck, like, okay, what would I do in this situation? So, and I feel like it also just helps you develop your skill set, maybe subconsciously, but anyone that's listening to this podcast with access to a ring, wrestle invisible stand for like 30 minutes and then see how you do.
Oh, I will tell you right now, even though I've never done it, I would slay it because
Yeah,
like
dude.
I watched so I don't know how many times I watched Invisible Man versus Invisible Stan and
Yeah,
just
dude.
imagined what was happening in the ring with
Yeah.
those guys. I'm like watering up thinking about like how awesome that match was
Yeah.
because it's like everybody in that crowd, right,
Mhm.
saw something. You're not gonna know what it was,
No.
but in their mind, they know exactly how that match played out. And sure, like you have the spot where like they fall out from the second floor and they fall in the crowd and the crowd falls over. But in that
Yes.
ring, in that moment where there's the roll ups going back and forth, you
Yeah.
can see it. And
Oh yeah.
I
In your
picture
brain,
that
you
all the
see
time.
everything. Yes.
I
And
I think about it with I was like, I wish that was me, like just wrestling, because I'd throw myself all over the place.
oh, absolutely. But also, like, what a testament to how good Bryce Remsburg is as a referee for literally being the magician that tells the crowd where these people are going, and like his reactions sell everything. So good.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh yeah, I love the yeah. Bryce got me like the moment I saw him, and I've shown people who are not wrestling fans that match
Yeah.
and watch them get into it, and they're like, "I'm not even a wrestling fan. Why am I locked in?" I was like, "It's just wrestling, bro. It's just what it
Yeah.
does to you."
Exactly. And it's really cool to, we talk about the different flavors of wrestling and like it's like the whole ice cream metaphor, everyone
Mhm.
loves your favorite flavor. But there's also just such I don't know, just like this victorious feeling in learning something new. Like I was sent by Fuego del Sol maybe like a week ago. There is an unlisted video on YouTube that Mike Bailey put up about the differences between a near fall and a false finish. And so I can't really talk about it because it's not a public video, but I'll tell you about it later off
Yeah.
this because it really kind of, even now, like opened my eyes to how to actually make something like a falsie mean something. Because in my opinion, right now, nobody has a finishing move because everybody kicks out of everything.
Mhm.
Who has a finisher right now? Really nobody, because no one has an established finish. But the way that Mike Bailey put something, it was like something new that I learned, and I try to tell guys all the time, like you will never stop learning in this business. Like even I'm going to hit 15 years, and I just learned something new that kind of just blew my mind. And there's something that I'll learn if I keep at this for 15 more years. I'm going to keep learning then too. So
I mean, it's like, hold on, as I work for it. I mean,
there you
this is
go.
like one of 3 books that I have.
Love it.
Like, I'm always taking notes,
I
and I
love
love because one of my favorite things to do too, outside of just like learning from like obviously wrestling, but like watching other media,
it.
like
Yeah.
and just getting wrapped up in it and forgetting that I'm actually doing something. One of my favorite things that I talk about is a scene in, and I don't know if you've seen the Zack Snyder version of Justice League,
Yeah. Yeah.
but at the end, there's that moment where Joker and Batman are talking, right?
Yeah.
And they have like their stare off. And I remember the first time watching it, just seeing Jared Leto and Ben Affleck have a conversation, and I almost forgot that this is a movie. I thought it was just 2 dudes having a conversation about how much they hated each other, and I was like, "This is real life." I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh wait, this is the Snyderverse." I forgot.
That cinema at its finest, man. When you forget that it's a movie,
Yeah.
so good.
I was just even, and I think about that and then invoking emotion and like
Mhm.
grabbing people, and it was something that like spurred me to think about like how could I work on like my facials and tell the story non-verbally, and so I learned sign language just to be
Oh,
able
that's
to do
awesome.
it. Yeah, and
That's
the thought process also was Red Dog likes to make fun of people in their language, right? So it
yeah.
doesn't matter where he asks. ¿Te quieres hablar español? Yo también. Stupido. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, you're deaf? Great.
Got you.
Like, you mean you're stupid? Like,
I love it.
like
That's
it's
awesome.
like yeah, and they'd be like, oh, c'est parlez-vous français? Wow. Like I just think about it and I'm like, these are things that Red Dog would say. So I started learning random shit. But sign language was in particular because one, I'm also a personal trainer and I know that, it's like something between like 13 to 15% of Americans
Mhm.
either have a hearing disability or are deaf.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a great way to communicate with people facially and non-verbally than through your hands. And so I'm like, yo, let me learn something that will help me teach people. And you could sign if you do sign, you'd be like, like, oh, like I am learning, right? Or you could be like, I am learning, right? And like your facials tell everything. I'm like,
Yes.
wow, that's a great tool to have just for fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And the facials are really our gateway to that crowd's emotion, 100%. And I don't know if anyone's ever thought of this, and I don't know if it would really like apply to you for being in the business for 5 years now, but anyone that's kind of new in the business, at least at training, wrestle in a mask, at least for a few sessions. It takes away your facials from the crowd. You make up for that in your body language, and under that mask, your facials come naturally. Think El Generico and how good Sami Zayn's facials are because of how long he wore that mask. Dude, after I got rid of the Americos mask, my facials were like tenfold, and it was just because my body language required those facials under the mask, and they came naturally after that. So if there's any trainees listening, wear a mask a few times to see how much better your facials get. I know it sounds weird, but it works. It's such a weird cliche, but it does work.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny too, because like you can look at like Rey Mysterio. Like I know Rey Mysterio wears his mask. You can see his eyes, you can see his face.
Yeah.
But even when you catch photos of him without his mask or videos, his facials are way bigger
Oh
than
yeah.
what they normally are.
Larger than life, 100%.
100%. Yo, I'm gonna ask you this question because I love asking everybody this question. But what's the worst bump you've taken?
Oh, the worst bump I've taken. I know I'm gonna forget something. I remember. So this was not actually at a show. This was at training. I was working on a springboard corkscrew moonsault. I had perfected it. I got it down, and I was so confident that I was going to try and get two full spins and just do like just become a tornado, right? Well, I was so focused on the spin, I was not worried about the flip, and I came straight down on my head.
Mm.
Luckily, there was a crash pad there, but if it was not there, it would have probably broken my neck because even with the crash pad, when I landed, I felt electricity from my ears to my toes for about 2 seconds. And I was like, I'm done. That was it. Like, I've had a good run. And thankfully, like, there was no severe injuries. I went to the chiropractor. Things eventually got better. But that was scary, man. That was really the first time that I experienced, like, what could have been a near career ending issue if that crash pad had not been there. Um, I tensed up really bad. One of my first training sessions, taking a superplex,
Mm.
and because I tensed up, I got a calcium deposit in my lower back, so I couldn't bump properly for like 3 months. I had to bump like Ric Flair on my side, to get away from that side. I've had about 3 or 4 pretty serious concussions. There was one actually. This one was crazy. In Austin, Texas, I wrestled a guy. Won't say his name because he's a great guy, and it was just a fluke. But I was on all fours. He came off the top rope with a splash, landed on my back, but it drove my head into the mat. And luckily, the next move was the finish. I went to the back, and so like let's say the bathrooms are over here in the locker room, and there's a giant mirror on this side. In my vision, everything was like in a mirror world. That was freaky. Like everything was inverted, like in black and white. It was terrifying. So I've forgotten a few things, but those are going to be up there on the list for sure.
I definitely had a bump. Actually, this was last year. Nobody's fault. It was my own. But I was doing a shotgun drop kick from the second rope,
Yeah.
and and it. I don't know. In the match, either way you see it, my head hit. It was a triple threat match
Yep.
first, and I was supposed to hit a drop kick, and the guy was gonna do like the Big E slam to another person. Well, as I do the drop kick, somehow the back of my head hit the dude's hip, and like out.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
and,
It's a KO. Oh,
and
goodness. Yeah.
but the crazy part is if you watch the match, like I go through the rest of the match, but
Yeah.
the only thing I remember was hearing like this is how crazy. I get up and I'm walking around, but I hear the crowd clapping. And
Yeah.
so I know it's my comeback spot. And I wanted to tell my opponent that like I was loopy because I knew what had happened. So as I
Yeah.
grabbed my opponent, he bumped. And then I got back up and I grabbed him. He's like, do something. I was like, bro, I have no idea what's happening right now. And he was
Yeah.
just like, give me 3 big shots and then just throw me over your shoulder and I'm just throwing you in the post and just stay in the post. I was like, that was the finish anyway. So like
Yeah.
I throw some shots, go to pick him up, he slides behind me, throws me into the buckle, and then that's where I just stayed for the rest of the match.
Yeah.
I drove home and I have seen, and we had this podcast going live. And so I remember driving home doing the podcast, not remember anything I said. And then
That's
like going
crazy.
back and watching the episode, I was like, what was I doing?
Wow.
Crazy.
You mentioned that, man. I forgot about this. I did an hour-long match in San Antonio, and I remember the guy hit a senton 15 minutes in. His tricep hit me and it dribbled my head. And I remember the last thing I remember is thinking, why are all these people at my house? Like I thought I was at my facility, and then blackout. My memory picks up at Buc-ee's after the show.
Oh.
Yeah, so I watched the match back. I don't remember any of it, and it's kind of scary, like experiencing that for the first time when you rewatch it. But it's you in the ring. Like we took the canvas and the padding off there. I took a pile driver on the boards. I missed a swanton onto bare boards. I remember none of it. But yeah, it's literally senton, 50 minutes in, 45 minutes of autopilot, and then I go to Buc-ee's and I wake up.
Damn.
And somehow I hit every spot on autopilot. I don't know how I did it, but like you said, man, those knockout situations are terrifying. And just like to not remember and just to rewatch yourself, that is scary, man.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa. I was like, I'm driving, I'm having conversations. I don't even remember like what and to be fair, we've done on this show a lot, so I still can't recall it. But I just remember like I think at one time I showed like a picture that my buddy posted up on Facebook, and that was. But yeah, I was like, oh, bruh.
Dude, so I will say I did not drive that night, so that's impressive that you drove. There was no way I would have made it home, so that's very impressive.
I think I said it on the show. I was like, "Oh, I'm slightly concussed."
It's like disclaimer, I'm gone.
Yeah. This is how good my friends are, though. Like after the show, I was still like 20 minutes from home. They just stayed on the stream. Like we ended the stream, we just stayed and we talked all the way back. They were just like, make sure you get home safe.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is and to be fair, I think I was in one of your lives on TikTok, and someone had mentioned Braun Strowman's. They're like just chucking you across the back.
Yeah. So we had so to preface this story, I wrestled Braun Strowman as Americos on Raw whenever he was doing his his enhancement talent destruction gimmick, whatever. And so it was the night that he was like just going backstage and just destroying everything. They did a pre-tape of him flipping the production truck. So they pre-filmed that. And one of my buddies was back there and he was like, hey, you remember that Americos kid you wrestled last year? He was like, yeah, I love that kid. He was like, yeah, he's in your live segment when you're going to throw someone through the table. He's like, which one is he? I'm going to throw him. He was like, yeah, he's got the man bun. He's like, and then he found me. He was like, hey, it'll be a bill just like last year. I was like, all right. And funny enough, Michael Hayes was our agent. He was like, hey, buddy, how confident are you, with your jump? I was like, do I have to jump? I was like, it's Braun Strowman. He was like, yeah, I know, but like, how confident are you? I was like, dude, I'm gonna fly. He was like, okay, cool, because we want you to like be thrown over the guardrail, but also over like a camera guy. So if you see the throw, literally it's overhead because he throws me over a cameraman and then the guardrail, then the table. And so that was, he gave me my flower miles that night. But no, Braun was really cool and, very, very respectful, but just like, I don't think he knows how strong he is. I didn't have to jump for him. Like he just threw me, man. Like it was insane. Yeah.
Well, and so I remember watching like your AEW dark matches, and to speak of bad bumps, and it looked gnarly was Lance Archer's knee coming from like you were on the second rope, I think, or even the top rope, and you came down, and I was like, oh, my face.
Yeah. Funny enough, man, he didn't touch me.
That's what I thought.
But no, and he's gonna hate that I'm gonna say this. I don't care. I know Lance really well. I have on an old phone. There's a video of him at my place doing like springboard, like whispering the winds in my ring. He came out to my place to get some ring rust off before his pay per view with Cody, his first pay per view for AEW. Because we've wrestled in Dallas a few times. Let it be known, I've beaten Lance Archer. All right, for those of you watching this, I've beaten him in Dallas, man. So, but yeah, dude, I was there all day that day at AEW, and it was about 4:30 p.m. And I was like, all right, we haven't heard anything. I'm gonna go get some food because I don't eat before I wrestle. I get nervous and I may throw up, dude. And I mean, I ate their catering. I went in, bro, like 3 plates. I threw away my third plate, and Lance texted me. He's like, "Hey, we have a match on Dynamite." And I was like, "We what, Lance? Like, I just ate all of your food." He was like, "Yeah, come to the ring. We have a match tonight." And I was like, "All right, well, you and bloated Barrett Brown going to wrestle on live TV tonight. Let's go." So, but now Lance is great, man. He's one of those that no matter what success he has, he remains humble. I could text him right now. He'll text him back in literally 3 minutes. I guarantee you. He's just one of those guys, just a team player, man. I love Lance.
Yeah, and that's what I love about like, and not everybody is like that, right? But I love having relationships with those guys who I know
Yeah.
are, and just being able to pick the brain. And it could be the craziest time, right?
Mhm.
I've texted some workers, I'm not gonna say who,
Yeah.
at like 11:59, and whether it's to say Happy New Year or not, it's not the point. But they text me back, and I'm like, "This is so cool."
Right.
What's up, buddy? And then like I remember texting another individual, and I was like, "Hey, I have this match I just did. I'm really excited about it. I need two things. One, I would like you to tell me how I did, and then two, I want you to make me hate this match." And they did, and I was very grateful for it because I was like, "That's so cool." And I'll tell you who it was after when we get done, because you guys don't get all this cool info.
Yeah, not for free, dang it.
No, that's crazy. You guys get enough of this. This is, it's like something like 400 and something episodes. You know this already. But what we are gonna do is we're gonna take this to my favorite part of the 3 Count Podcast, which is the 3 Count Podcast 10 count questions. And Mr. Brown, this is how it works. I'm gonna fire off 10 questions at you rapid fast, and whatever your answer is, that's your answer.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna put on an imaginary timer for added pressure. Bing. And in the words of my favorite commentator, Mike Goldberg, here we go. SmackDown or Raw?
Raw.
Favorite movie?
Shutter Island.
Let's go. I like that one. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Favorite TV show?
The Office.
It's a great one. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Favorite cartoon?
Ed, Ed and Eddie.
Let's go. Waffles or pancakes?
Waffles all day.
I love waffles. Favorite podcast?
The 3 Count Podcast, dude. Come on.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. I mean, this is a new background. It's all kind of hidden, but it's there. You just gotta look for it. Nominate one person that you want to see on this podcast.
You're gonna get Dwayne Johnson, dude. I believe in you. Come on. Get the Rock.
100%. One day. And last but not least, my favorite question to ask every single person who comes on this show: favorite curse word?
Shit.
It's a great word to use.
It's a great one.
It's amazing. So those are all my questions for you. So the last thing I need is for you to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you.
All right, man. Well, you can find me on almost every social media platform. I'm on Facebook. All my handles for Twitter, well, now X, Instagram, TikTok, and my YouTube at TCO_BarrettB. You can see that on my little thing right down here. So there's that. My website, www.barrettbrownpro.com. It is being updated pretty constantly. Going to have some new stuff up there. Go subscribe to the YouTube. We're putting out shorts pretty much every day at this point. And the TikTok, I go live, which is how I got on this podcast. So go check out the lives. And but also, guys, if you haven't heard it from him, go and follow the 3 Count Podcast because he does some great work here, and it's been an honor to be on it.
Oh man, I appreciate that so much. But like he said, he gave you his handles. He told you everything that you need to know. But like every great wrestling match, we got to take this home because this is the 3 Count Podcast presents Now Entering, and I'm your host, Clifford Red Dog, the man that leads you up that mountain called wrestling. And like every good shirt was never about me, it's about who's entering. So who's entering? you see him right there, the stray dog himself, Barrett Brown. And you guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there, or you're legitimately following us on all of our social media platforms. You're checking us out on YouTube. You're subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're checking us out on Spotify. You're listening to us on Amazon Music. You're even listening to us on that dumb app with this stupid jingle that goes, iHeartRadio, whatever it is. You're checking us out on foryourwear.com. You're even buying our merch on prowrestlingtees.com. You're doing all that stuff. You're telling your mom about us, your dad about us, your aunties, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your grandmas, your grandpas, your best friends, and your enemies, because we love haters too. You're doing all that stuff, or really you're just kind of waiting for this episode to end. You're waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Kawaii. What's up? It is your friendly neighborhood Red Dog, and thank you for checking out this episode of the 3 Count Podcast. Whether that was Chaz friends, Red Dog friends, Damien friends, the film styles, now into the ring, now entering 201, or now returning to the ring, all those good episodes. You should really be liking, commenting, and even sharing this with your friends, family, whoever it may be. But what you all should be doing is checking us out on all of our social media platforms at 3 Count Pod, whether that's on IG, Twitch, you check us out on Threads, whatever it may be. And if you go check us out on X, it is 3count_pod. Check us out on YouTube, as well as Facebook, on Rumble, on Apple Music, on Spotify, all those fun things. Tell your mom about us, your dad about us, your aunties, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, and your best friends and your enemies, because we love haters too. Do all that stuff. And then, last but not least, buy our merch on foryourwear.com or prowrestlingtees.com. Kawaii.